Robin. Thank you for your courage and your poise. You did a beautiful job, and I appreciate all your help. So thank you all for being here on this somewhat somber but incredibly significant occasion of signing this piece of legislation, which is designed to keep people like Robin and her kids safe, and designed to make families stronger, and designed to help victims of domestic violence when they are at their most vulnerable to take the necessary steps to keep themselves and their kids safe. And so to all of you here who are advocates, thank you. Thank you for your work. This morning, Senator Goodwin and I and Rep. Blazejewski were together about 2 hours ago to sign another bill. We were over at the Chad Brown Housing Authority, and there we were signing a bill that outlawed non-competes for low-wage workers, another good piece of legislation to help folks get ahead and have economic mobility. And I mention that because this bill that I'm about to sign was led by the dynamic duo of Senator Goodwin and Rep. Blazejewski. Just today is a representative, 2 bills that I'm signing because of them and their great work, which makes Rhode Island families stronger, safer, and able to get ahead. So thank you guys for your work. And I also want to recognize Chair Lynch Prata for her great work on behalf of Rhode Island families. And I know you spend a lot of your time in the family court, and you see day to day the impact of this legislation. So thank you. And thank you to Tanya Harris of the Rhode Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence for joining us and for all of your hard work. So listen to this statistic. I've read it 3 times in preparing for this because each time I read it, it stops you in your tracks. 1 in 3 Rhode Island women have experienced domestic violence of some kind. So that means people in this room, people we know, every single one of us knows folks in our close circle of friends and family who've been a victim of domestic violence. I spent a lot of time dealing with public health issues, addiction, vaping, overdose. This is right up there with it. This is a public health issue. This is the worst kind of violence, often perpetrated by someone you love or used to love in your home that comes at you in the place that you're supposed to be safest. And so it's not the physical violence, but it's the mental terror that is haunting. And when people like Robin get up the courage to go seek that protective order, to do all they can do to keep them and their kids safe, the least we can do is make sure the system works and break down the hurdles and the bureaucracy and get rid of the unnecessary steps, because someone at that point is doing all they can do. And what we need to do is make sure the system works and gets out of the way so their children get the protection that they deserve. And Robin explained exactly what the bill does, so I don't have to go through that. But it makes sense. It just makes sense. These are your children who you're trying to protect from an abuser, and you shouldn't have to go through 2 different steps and 2 different bureaucracies to get a protective order to protect your kids. A few years ago, many of us in this room came together to pass and sign legislation taking guns out of the hands of domestic abusers. And I know a few guys were here, you helped me get it done, and we signed it together. This is another step, all steps along that same path to let people know domestic violence isn't okay, it's a crime, and we're all with you to get through it. And we're going to do what we need to do to reduce domestic violence from happening in the first place, and then to make sure that the system is there for you to support you and keep you protected. And to those of you in the room who've lived this experience, it's unbelievably inspirational that you're here. You're here, you're courageous, you're strong, you came forward with this idea, you gave us this idea, these guys got it passed. Thank you for doing it. In a few minutes we'll sign it, and it will make every child safer. So, thank you for having me, and please give a very warm welcome to the woman who made this happen, When Mary Ellen Goodwin says we have to do this, it tends to get done. This morning, Rep. Blazejewski told a very funny story that she writes a note on a piece of legislation that says to him, Chris, let's pass this. It's a direct order. She only does that when it's necessary for the health, safety, and good for the people of Rhode Island. So please join me in welcoming Senator Mary Ellen Goodwin.
Good morning. Thank you, folks. I'm happy to join you all here today and my colleagues in government. Let me take a moment to recognize here Senator Lynch Prata, my colleague or co-sponsor of this legislation, who helped shepherd it through the Committee on Judiciary. I'm also joined here by Senator Gail Golden. Where are you, Gail? Thank you, Gail, for being here, also a co-sponsor. I have some written remarks, but I'm not going to use them today. I'm sorry, Greg Parry. You go through a lot of work to write these up, but I'm better off not having them, I think. But I just wanted to say, over my long tenure here in the State House, I've been the sponsor of many, many domestic violence bills. It's been my pleasure to work alongside the Coalition Against Domestic Violence here in Rhode Island, you, Tanya, and John. But you know, in my heart, sadly, I wish that we never had to have any of these bills introduced or sponsored, because like the governor laid out so ably, I mean, domestic violence usually comes at the hands of people you love in your own home. And the story that Robin told really was telling for why we even need this legislation. I mean, I was kind of dismayed that we would sponsor this legislation that children were excluded, a certain category of children were excluded to be protected here in the state of Rhode Island. So this law fixes that to include all children in hopes that their safety is paramount here. I'd like to also thank the governor, who's worked alongside me on many, many domestic violence issues, going way back to when she was general treasurer in the Domestic Violence Fund, Governor. Thank you. You've been a leader over the years. And of course, to my dear colleague, Chris Blazejewski, we sponsor a lot of legislation together. And as the governor said, that was kind of a true story about me leaving that little note on Chris's desk. I want you co-sponsor it with me and get it done. But that happened to me, somebody had an actual picture of what I said, so I can't even deny it. But folks, I'm just gonna say, it's been a pleasure to work with the coalition and all of the folks here over the years, and on this bill as well. So thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. And I want to start by thanking the Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Tanya, thank you so much for being here. And I see John as well. And I see clapping back there is Alice. Alice is my 2-year-old son Liam's friend. And Liam, when he sees Alice, gets so excited. So I get excited to see Alice, and she's here in her costume here today. So it's good to see Alice, and Liam, I'll be sure to say hi to Liam for you, Alice. So it has been such a pleasure to work with the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and I just want to say that the survivors that come up and tell their stories to our committees, to the Senate Judiciary Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, thank you. I can't say enough how much that matters and what a big impact it has on legislation and on the committee members. It was just 3 years ago today, I believe, that Senator Goodwin and I, as well as the governor, were here to sign into law the Domestic Violence Prevention Fund, which is a bill that we worked on for many years. It was renamed the Deb DeBear Domestic Violence Prevention Fund in honor of Deb and all the hard work she put into it. And so working on issues related to domestic violence has been always important to me, as well as Senator Goodwin and, of course, the governor as well. And I want to thank them for all their support. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't thank my many House colleagues that helped make this happen. Speaker Nicholas Mattiello, Leader Joe Shikarchi, and my co-sponsors in particular, Representative Kazarian, Representative Casimiro, Representative Alzate, and Representative Marzukowski. Thank you for supporting these important pieces of legislation, and for my many colleagues that voted in support of it, and make domestic violence an issue for the House, for the state of Rhode Island. And thank you for being here and supporting this legislation.